The County Ledger, Chapter 2. Eva Mercer reached her motel room before she let herself read the board list again. Tom Mercer, Celia Lark, Mateo Ruiz, not all listed together, but all touching the same trust, the same marina slip, the same lie that kept changing its clothes depending on who was speaking. She spread the papers across the bedspread under the humming wall unit and added Ruthie's carbon copy beside them, like a final accusation. Mateo had paid cash. Not Owen Lark. Not the county. Mateo. The room smelled faintly of bleach and old rain. Eva sat on the edge of the bed and tried to think like the reporter she had been before divorce, funeral casseroles, and her father's unfinished instructions made every question feel personal. In Louisville, she would have started with the simplest rule. When a story changed at every stop, find the person with the most to lose if it became consistent. Her phone buzzed against the nightstand. Unknown caller. She answered on the third ring. Hello? Silence first. Then Mateo's voice, low and tight. You need to leave Celia Lark alone. Eva smiled without humor. Good evening to you too. This isn't a game. You told me evidence overflow was stored in slip 14. Ruthie says you paid cash to keep the account alive. Which version would you like to defend? He exhaled once, hard enough to blur the line for a second between anger and fear. Ruthie talks too much. Only when people lie poorly. Eva. He almost never used her name that way in high school. Back then he shortened everything, made ordinary sentences sound easy. Tonight each word arrived placed carefully, like he was walking glass into position. Your father spent the last year convincing himself there was a pattern where there wasn't one, Mateo said. You don't have to keep that going, because you miss him. Eva looked at Tom's name on the trust board and felt her jaw tighten. My father left me documents, not grief homework. Then, hear this part as a favor. Celia is sick. She doesn't need strangers on her porch asking about her husband. I'm not a stranger. No, Mateo said. That's the problem. The line went dead. Eva sat with the phone in her hand until the screen dimmed. The favor had been the most useful thing he had offered all day. People only tried to redirect her when they were afraid the straight path worked. She drove to Celia Lark's house anyway. The place sat east of town on a narrow road above the lake, a one-story cedar house with a screened porch and a mailbox leaning like a tired shoulder. Eva remembered coming there once at 16 with a debate team fundraiser packet. Owen had opened the door barefoot, sunburned, laughing at something in the kitchen. Celia had worn yellow gardening gloves and written a check without asking what the money was for. They had looked like one of the town's fixed units, boat, marriage, summer people who became year-round because leaving would feel theatrical. Now the porch held an oxygen tank beside the swing. Celia opened the screen before Eva could knock twice. She had gone narrow and papery with age, but her eyes stayed exact. Tom's girl, she said. You came late on purpose, so fewer people would see you. Eva gave up pretending. Yes. Good. Celia stepped back. That's how your father used to do it too. Inside, the living room was orderly to the point of strain. Pill bottles lined up by height. Coasters centered under empty glasses. A box fan in the corner turned its head from wall to wall like it was keeping watch. Celia settled into a chair near the window and pointed Eva toward the sofa. Mateo called you? Eva asked. He called twice, told me to rest. That boy hears a branch move and wants to stand between it and the whole county. He's afraid I'll ask the wrong questions. There are no wrong questions, Celia said, only expensive answers. Eva took the receipt from her bag and laid it on the coffee table. Then the trust board list. Then the carbon copy from Ruthie. I think my father was trying to tell me Mateo kept slip 14 open under Owen's name, she said. I don't know why. Celia studied the papers without touching them, because Owen asked him to. Eva felt the room contract by half an inch. Asked him when? A month before the accident. Celia's voice remained even, but her left thumb pressed so hard into the arm of the chair that the joint whitened. Owen said if anything happened, there were county boxes that should stay where they were until he decided who to trust. What county boxes? He wouldn't tell me. Did he trust Mateo? He loved Mateo. Celia looked up. That isn't the same thing. Wind pushed against the porch screen with a dry rattle. Eva waited. The night before Owen died, Tom came here after dark, Celia said. They argued on the porch. Not loud, worse than loud. Controlled manner always worse. Tom said the trust was being used to bury records. Owen said he knew, and that was why he had to keep one piece where they couldn't rewrite it. One piece of what? He wouldn't tell me that either. Eva leaned forward. After the accident, did you sign the slip transfer because you wanted to? Celia laughed once, quietly. After the accident, I signed everything people set in front of me. Widow forms, insurance forms, county condolences. There is a whole industry for women in shock. That landed harder than Eva expected. Two men she had known all her life, carrying paperwork to a grieving house and calling it help. Did my father think Owen was dead? She asked. Celia's eyes sharpened. You tell me. He came back 3 days later and asked whether anyone had already emptied the slip. And had they? No. I told him no. He cried in my kitchen, Eva. The answer disturbed Eva more than if Tom had looked guilty in some clean, direct way. Crying in private did not fit the diagram she had been drawing all afternoon. Do you still have a key? She asked. Celia hesitated, then opened the drawer in the side table and took out a brass marina tag stamped 14. I kept it because keeping things felt more honest than signing them away, she said. If you go there, don't do it for the county and don't do it for revenge. Do it because your father died trying to leave the truth in reach of someone stubborn enough to use both hands. By the time Eva reached the marina, the office lights were off and the lake had gone dark, except for a ribbon of reflected moonlight that made the docks look slick and unreliable. She parked behind the bait freezer and walked down the planks with Celia's key in one pocket and her father's ledger page in the other. Slip 14 sat at the far end, empty except for a weathered storage locker bolted to the dock box and a length of chain looped through its handles. The padlock was new enough to catch light. The brass tag opened it. Inside lay 3 archive folders wrapped in plastic, 1 rusted flare gun, and a county evidence carton with the sheriff's seal struck through in black marker. Eva lifted the box onto the dock and opened it. Photographs worst. Belmere Lake shoreline. Owen's boat pulled half onto gravel. A deputy cruiser in the background. Timestamped 7:12 p.m., the evening he supposedly vanished. Then a typed inventory sheet. Chain of custody duplicate. Item removed before central logging. At the bottom, in Tom Mercer's handwriting, Mateo said Ruiz was already there before dispatch. Eva went cold in a precise, useful way. She kept digging. Under the inventory sheet lay a disposable camera envelope from the pharmacy in town. Inside it was 1 developed photograph, glossy and recent. Mateo, standing beside Celia's porch steps last fall. Across from him, turned partly away from the lens, was a man in a county ball cap and a dark windbreaker. The man's face was not fully visible. It did not need to be. Owen Lark had a white crescent scar beneath his left ear from a propeller nick everyone in town knew, because he told the story badly every 4th of July. The man in the photograph had the scar. Eva stared until the dock seemed to shift under her feet. Owen had not died in Belmere Lake 12 years ago. Or he had died on paper first, and in truth later, and half the county had agreed to pretend the order made sense. She turned the photograph over. On the back, Tom had written 1 line in pencil. If this reaches you, do not let Mateo decide who counts as missing.